Redditors, what is your earliest memory? Walking up to a stranger on a ferry that was wearing the same, very obscure, jumper as my dad, hugging him and loudly proclaiming, "Daddy, I saw a dolphin." My parents took me to the park. Now, my mum is terrified of birds, including ducks, as in, she will scream if they come near her. I remember suddenly a flock of ducks, swans, geese, all of those water birds, suddenly coming towards us. My mum, she let go of my hand and ran off screaming. My dad went after my mum. Me? Well, I became duck food. I am become bread, feeder of ducks. Being told to go for a nap. I was around 2-3 at the time, and I refused because I wanted to keep playing and was being defiant. My dad repeatedly put me in my bed and said that I'll feel better if I lied down for a bit. I fell asleep and he woke me up 2 hours later. And shocker, I felt better. LOL. Can't remember the age this happened, but I remember feeling really sick for some unspecific reason. I told my mom and she went out to grab medicine for me at the local pharmacy. I really can't remember what symptoms I was feeling or what she intended to grab to help me. While she was out, I started feeling much better and felt bad that I made her go out and get medicine. I remember waiting for what felt like an eternity, sitting at the bottom of our stairs by our front door waiting for her to get home. When she got home, I apologized because I told her I felt okay again and felt bad. She ran out just to get something to help me. She didn't care. She was just happy that I didn't feel sick anymore. I remember when I was feeling sick when I was really young, and my mom gave me children's Motrin. That's the day we found out I'm allergic to ibuprofen. I was 3 years old and playing with a toy cow in the living room of my old house. My grandma's poodle was there and I have no idea why, but I remember putting the cow down and sticking my pinky in the dog's mouth. He lightly nipped me and I remember feeling how pointy his teeth were. I wasn't hurt, just startled enough to learn not to do dumb crap like that again. Haha, wow. I watched my toddler try to touch the cat's eyeball this morning. Kids, man. I faked swallowing a rock when I was 5 to leave kindergarten. Then I confessed when my mom and I were at the hospital about to get x-ray. I would have between 2-3 years old. I had always remembered it as an out-of-body experience. I was at my grandma's house walking around the pool alone. I know, it didn't take long for mum to find out and ban unsupervised visits with grandma, and I fell in. I remember it as if I was reaching in and saving myself from drowning somehow. It's really hard to explain. I told mum about this in the last few years and it turns out I was actually saving my brother from drowning. But it had also happened to me and she thinks I must have merged the memories somehow. This is kinda depressing, but my first clear memory is of my dad beating my mom until she fell on the kitchen floor. Then she got up and told me to get my doll and we got in the car and drove away from him. I was 3 at the most. I was in my crib and my brother was talking to me, but I couldn't speak well enough to understand him. I remember being mad because he could climb in and out of the crib and I couldn't. When I was little, I guess I got pink eye. My mother was trying to get me to calm down to have eye drops, but I think I took it as a game for her to chase me. The only thing I really remember is my mother grabbing me and slam dunking me onto the carpet. She held me down with her forearm and forced some eye drops in my eye while I just was still laughing and screaming. I would like to believe that my mom RKO'd so hard I gained consciousness. I had a toddler that got pink eye. It was heck. Drops needed to go in several times a day and she fought and screamed bloody murder every time. She needed drops while at daycare too. It turns out she was an absolute angel when her teachers gave her drops. Little butthead. I didn't feel as bad wrestling her down after that. My 1 year younger than me cousin was watching me eat a lollipop and got so confused when it was inside my mouth. She kept asking where it went. Then I took it out and showed her. Then I put it back in my mouth and she asked me again where it went. I was 3. She's still my best friend 39 years later. My mom was spoon feeding my infant brother and she dropped the spoon in a bowl of soup. I thought it was gone forever in an infinite ocean of soup, and I was amazed when she got it back out. I think that was me learning object permanence. I thought it was gone forever in an infinite ocean of soup. I like the idea that soup bowls are bottomless portals to the soup dimension. Me picking my nose, looking around and not finding anything to wipe it with, and then sticking the booger back in. My dad watched the whole thing. He laughed. Mad respect for not eating that lil sucker. Child version of me 100% would. CIEI. Alright, one of my best friends tells this story to anyone that will listen, but my earliest memory is of sitting on the bathroom floor while my mom was changing her tampon. My dad came in and yelled, "What are you doing?" and she said, "He's not going to remember." Earliest clear memory. I think the earliest was of a drawing of a goat on a wall. This is why you never say that to your kids. It is like that phrase triggers a recording device in kids' brains. I'm about 3.5 years old, and my dad wakes me up in the absolute dead of night and tells me to come down and watch TV. My mom's like, "Just let the kid sleep," but my dad says no, this is important. Turns out, some guys have just landed on the moon and are about to go for a walk. Your dad is a real G. That's such a cool early memory. The midwife coming to visit my mum who was pregnant with my sister. She kindly gifted me a lip balm. I was about 2, so IDKY a lip balm seemed an appropriate gift. I just remember the lip balm tasted like crap. Maybe you had chapped lips. My son's lips were never so chapped than when he was between 2-3 because I couldn't get him to stop licking them. Mine is a dream. I was having a lightsaber duel with Darth Maul on like a 1-stroke 2-inch beam above a pitch black void. I was at the end of the beam. If I move back any further I fall into the void. I managed to trip him and he falls. Plot twist, it wasn't a dream. I was too little and used to crawl on all 4 limbs. I remember my dad took me to a clinic. There I noticed someone crossing the legs for the first time. He was reading a newspaper. I was dang confused about his legs. I wanted to ask my dad, but had no words. I remember my dad laying on the couch with his legs crossed and a blanket over his legs. I asked how he switched his feet. He then uncrossed and recrossed his legs under the blanket as I stood there amazed and slowly figured it out. I genuinely thought he had removed his feet and swapped them and was somewhat disappointed to find out that we can't do that. I was 4, my brother was 1, his diaper leaked poop on the ground and I touched it cause I thought it was chocolate. One of my relatives brought that up once in a family gathering when I was in grade 3 and I stormed to the roof, locked myself there and kept hysterically crying like someone close to me died. They still bring both incidents up but very rarely and laugh about it. TBH, this makes me super embarrassed to this day. Nothing to be embarrassed about. This is pretty ordinary for kids. My friend ate his own poop while in kindergarten. Walking into the living room where my parents and grandparents were sitting, staring them in the eye, and crapping on the carpet. This is my favorite one I've read so far. It was my 5th birthday. My mom had made me a really cool cake with an action figure in it. Everyone left the cake alone in the kitchen while we went out to eat dinner at Red Robin. By the time we got home, my dogs, a collie and golden doodle, had eaten half the cake. I remember my grandfather letting me sit on his lap while he played poker with a bunch of other grandpas, and they let me eat all of the cookies I wanted. They smoked cigars and made faces at me. I remember thinking it was hilarious. All of my earliest memories are of him. He was always happy to see me and would pick me up and laugh. He died when I was 4. That is an absolutely lovely memory. Horrifically burning my arm when I was a small child left me wearing burn gloves for years afterwards. I thankfully don't remember the burning, but I do remember it being a pain in the butt to wash my hands when I was like 3. Sitting in one of those chairs where they feed you. I remember just being happy and pure. My mom was feeding me, and my dad was sitting on a couch across me. I remember them smiling, and I remember being filled with love. No actual thoughts, just pure love for my parents. I think about that once in a while. I was really little. In my memory my arm and hand and fingers look like a young toddler's body. I reached out with my finger to pat the pretty spider, with a red patch on its back. I remember my mum gasping with horror and pulling me upwards and backwards. Found another Aussie. I was still in a pram. I remember it more like a dream than any of my other memories, so I think it's my earliest. We were walking across a path of stones in a park I think. possibly in the town city I was born in. I'm told this memory was when I lost my favorite teddy bear, and I probably only remember it because I was unhappy I couldn't find him. We eventually found him in a tree. Mine's so embarrassing. I remember running down the hall to the bathroom because I had wet my mom's bed. I can distinctly see the hallway and the light was on at the end of the hall in the bathroom. We only lived there between me being 3 to 4, so it was sometime around that age. Then my next one is sneaking out of my uncle's house, where we were staying temporarily after leaving the place mentioned above, sneaking into my grandparents' house and trying to turn the TV on in the living room. The houses were like 20 feet apart, 2 trailer houses. The Challenger explosion. More specifically, the Punky Brewster episode about the Challenger explosion. That episode, and the one where her friend got trapped in the abandoned refrigerator and almost died. I was 3 when those aired, and I remember watching them with vivid clarity. That show existed to traumatize children. My mom watched the Challenger explode on live television in elementary school, I believe. Teacher wheeled in a chunky 80s TV on a platform and the class watched. When it suddenly burst, there was silence and confusion throughout the whole room. I can't imagine witnessing something like that. I was around 2-3 years old. My brother almost killed me when we were eating. I was in one of those feeding chairs and our mum went to the kitchen to prepare some food for us, and my brother took a big chunk of bread and shoved it into my throat. I started choking and crying and my mum did a Heimlich procedure on me. It was fun and I survived, haha. I was 2 years old and having kidney surgery, and I woke up halfway through my surgery because the epidural came out of my spine. They had snapped the needle in my spine on the first go, which was great. I remember seeing them working on me, freaking out, as you do, and I managed to rip the line out of my hand, which was pee out with blood. I remember the excruciating pain that came with all of it as the epidural wore off. I remember pretty much my entire hospital stay, and dang near everything since then. Freaking out, as you do, and I managed to rip the line out of my hand, which was pee out with blood. Metal as frick. I was like 2 or 3 and my dad was watching Return of the Living Dead, so my earliest memory is an 80s punk goth chick dancing naked on a tombstone. Kind of explains a few things I was into back in high school. Trying to drink a cup of water while lying flat on my back in the crib. Water splashed all over my face, of course, and while I was pre-verbal, my thoughts can be best translated as well. Let's not do that again. I still try it, and most of the time, still fail. My cousin would join his legs together so it was like a slide. He'd put me in his lap and I'd slide. I remember doing that again and again till my aunt called us for dinner. I was 4. I don't have any other memories of him besides that one. He died when I was 5. He was 24. I feel like he's my guardian angel though. Like he's always somewhere looking out for me. Appreciate your loved ones being close to you. What you have one day, you might lose another. Being swung very fast into the air and onto my dad's shoulders. I was 2 and had made friends with a baby swan by grabbing its neck. Mama swan wasn't having it and chased us out of the park. Beautiful, colorful feathers floating in a gorgeous blue and sunny sky. It's a happy memory. Apparently when I was 3 I saw chickens being slaughtered and freaked out big time. My earliest concrete memory is me backed into corner in the bathroom cowering in absolute terror as my mum advances on me with a look of red mist rage on her face. I'm starting therapy in the new year. Holy ST. I hope everything's okay now. Frick. This one is hard to answer. As a person with memory problems, I do have several memories of me as a young child, but then it's like I time traveled until I was 9. The most memorable earliest memory is recording a lot of videos. I was 8 at the time. Most of them are and lost forever. The most memorable one is me drinking 5 bottles of some juice in one sitting. I swear I threw up after this. My earliest memory is being in my mother's arms looking outside the window during a storm at night. I remember the rain falling down so heavy and the lightning flashing so bright. I remember looking at the rocks outside and clearly remember seeing a turtle climbing out of a puddle slowly. I remember my brother, playing with him at the apartment we lived in, etc. My mother doesn't believe me, but recently I was given some pictures that verify my memories, pictures I haven't been shown before. Complicated family history. I believe I have memories that early because him and my father died before I was 2. Dang, that sucks. Glad you have some memories of them. Crapping myself in kindergarten. I remember sitting in a chair and I shat myself. Worst part was the fact that we had lunch and I had to walk in my underwear to the table. Everybody was laughing at me and I was crying. What the frick, you guys have good memories. I can only remember like one thing from my second year of primary school. 5/6 years old. I only remember it because for some reason the teacher was talking about a certain male appendage and asking the name of it. Not sure why they would have been talking about this, but they were. Of course the boys were all sausage willy pee. Then this girl chimed in with the right answer. Weird as frick thing to happen and a weird as frick thing to still remember. Probably not the earliest thing I remember, but I remember the little step stage area at the front of the class that was only in that one class that was dedicated to the first 2-year levels of the school, so I can put a time period to it, whereas I can't remember anything else with a time period before that. Dude, I'm with you. I don't understand how people have so much detail of this first memory. I have no idea what my first memory is. I have a bunch of random scenes in my mind but don't even know if they are made up and I could never put them in order. I definitely can't remember how I felt or what I was thinking in that moment. Sitting in a stroller looking up at a canopy of leaves and the sun shining through. From pictures of the stroller I'd wager I had to have been about 3 years old. It is such a weird insignificant moment to remember that clearly. Watching Cat in the Hat and resting my head against the arm of a chair. I was barely old enough to walk at the time. Oddly enough, I have very few memories from my childhood. It's to the point where I have no idea what my life was like back then. I was young, uncertain of my age, but I knew I was young. Tiny, in a house I barely recognized. I'd woken up and just remember asking why to myself. It didn't make much sense. I was so curious. I looked outside and saw the tree in my backyard obscuring the sunlight, shining a sunbeam directly onto my dog Shuffles. I remember thinking how it looked so nice. Why did it look nice? The sun is hot. It just did. I walked into the living room. Mum and Dad were mumbling things I couldn't understand. The window was letting in more sunlight on the carpet near the TV. I remembered Shuffles. I laid down in the sunbeam and curled up. It felt nice. It felt peaceful. I remember thinking, yep, that's why it looked nice. It is. You sound like a robot suddenly becoming sentient. It's said your first earliest memory says a lot about who you are as a person. Needless to say, the replies on here are amazing. But in any case, mine is when I was about 3 and I stole my brother's trike and cried inconsolably when he pushed me off of it. I climbed up a bunch of shelves in my parents' kitchen, Rugrats style, got a cup from the kitchen cabinet, filled it with water, put it in the microwave, and set the timer for like 5 minutes. I then took it out, took a sip, and blacked out. Parents now say I got severe burns all over my mouth. My dad giving me a bath in a bucket. We'd ran away from my mom and were living in one of those tiny travel trailers. They got back together later and are still together now. I think I was close to 2 years old. If you are new to the channel, you can subscribe. I publish new videos every day. Until then, check another video. Bye for now.